Hey everyone, Anna is here and I wanted to squeeze a money day to chat with you about how do you prepare, or is there a way to actually prepare to get ready to have a baby? We just celebrated our little boy's 15th week's birthday. I do weeks and months and we'll see what I'll do in the future, but right now every week is very important, especially when you have a teeny tiny one. So he just turned 15 weeks yesterday and it has been a phenomenal experience. But as I was kind of reflecting back on thinking about the process that we went through in terms of getting ready to have a baby. Hi Kathy, and since this is a financial show, I've got to drop in a few ideas for you. How do you prepare for it financially? Because as much advice as I have gotten from friends and family, solicited and unsolicited, about how to prepare emotionally, physically, right? Everybody told me to get a lot of sleep ahead of time, but that doesn't work like that. I wish all of those people would come over my house tonight and watch Liam so I can get sleep now. But such is life. None of this is complaining at all. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. But financial aspect of having children is really important when you're making those decisions. And I think there are a lot of folks who might be sitting on sidelines, right? Because they may not put the two or three of these pieces together, that it's going to be really important. Some folks don't even consider financial aspect and they just have kids because they bring so much joy. So, but if you have to do this again, you've done this before, you have to do this again, I want you to think about a couple of things that might be necessary to think ahead. Now, in my very short experience of 15 weeks of being a mom and getting ready to become a mom, here are a couple of ideas that I've gotten in place, right? Or a couple items that we've executed on. Now, I want you to think about kind of two phases: before you become a parent and then after. So obviously the very first thing to think about, and this came into play for me really heavily, and Kathy, you're watching this live, thanks so much, appreciate it. Why aren't you in church, by the way? Aren't you supposed to be in church, or about getting there for the Easter Good Friday? Anyway, I appreciate you hanging on with me. So number one, understanding how much time you actually going to take. Some of you don't have the flexibility and you're only given so much time to take off. Some of you have the flexibility, just like I did. I own my own business. I have a team who supports me and in this business. So I was able to step aside. Now, I was able to do this physically, but it was really hard for me to really step aside and not worry about what was going on in the business, because let's face it, up until Liam showed up 15 weeks ago, the business was my baby. It is still my baby, but now I've got a real baby that I'm focusing on. So whatever it is that you do, understand and agree with yourself how much time you're going to take off. If there's two parents present, are you going to take time off back to back? Are you going to take time off together? Right? So how is that going to work? Because my friends, that translates into number two point that I want to discuss, is your spending in your budget, right? If you're taking time off, are you going to get paid for it? There are, for example, in the state of California, there's an option to get, if your employer doesn't pay for maternity or paternity leave, and you, over the years, you've paid into something known as SDI, State Disability Insurance Fund, you can get paternity leave, you can get maternity leave benefits. Not very much, but that exists. Other states may not have that flexibility. You may have a short-term disability insurance that allows you to get those kinds of benefits. But the question I want you to think about, when that baby shows up and you're spending time with them, how are you managing your fixed and variable expenses, right? Remember, every money date, I want you to stay on the top of your overall money flow. This is one of those things. And you know what happens when baby shows up, or even before that? There's a lot of additional expenditures, guess what? You knew that's gonna take place. And you cannot anticipate everything ahead of time. So having a plan of how you're going to maintain your monthly spending for, even maybe for this transition period, maybe all you're going to take is 6 weeks and then go back to work, or do something along those lines and start working part-time. It is totally up to you. I think we live in a world where all of that is an option, but I want you to think about that. Number 3 is medical coverage. This is the one that really needs to be thought through ahead. How the baby is going to be delivered, whose medical insurance is paying for it. Is it yours? Is it your partner's? Is it your spouse's? Do you have separate coverages? All of those things need to be decided ahead of time, okay? And one other thing before the baby arrives, and I hopefully can give you this advice well before, and this particularly relates to women, before you actually get pregnant, is making sure that you can get enough life insurance coverage. So you and I planned well ahead into the game, and we've gotten additional, because we've had insurance already in place, additional life insurance. Because one of the things with women who are pregnant or during pregnancy, after the first trimester, you cannot get any more life insurance. The life insurance company will not underwrite you until you have this, until you have your baby, and then 6 weeks postpartum checkup. Then you can start applying for the process. So you kind of have a really tiny window way before, if you really are a planner and you do this way in advance. But I want you to even think about that. So if you missed out on life insurance, something to think about. There are options, by the way. Maybe if your company, we're kind of out of the open enrollment season at the moment, because they usually tend to happen for companies at the end of the year, like October, November timeline. But maybe your company is having an open season and open enrollment, and you can get more additional coverage without going through underwriting. But at the very least, make sure that the spouse who is not, or the partner who is not pregnant and carrying a baby, gets enough life insurance, okay? Because once you deliver the baby, you can come back to this process. It's gonna be one additional thing on your to-do list once the baby's here, okay? So those are my 4 things before the baby arrives. Now, you've got this bundle of joy, and I really should have done this video with Liam, but I'm a little nervous still because I have no idea what he can do. And I need him to pay attention for a couple of minutes, so I'm working on it. I'm just finally wrapping my hands around getting perfect selfies with him, because I can hold him with one hand. I've got the phone. I'm gonna work on the videos, I promise. I'll bring him on. He'll be the star of the show. So a couple things to discuss. Once the baby arrives, what do you need to focus on, right? And this is where it got beyond like this overwhelm that everybody's talking about. First of all, there's so much joy that you experience. There's so much shock that you go through that unless you've been through this process yourself, it's very hard to describe. But this is the piece that nobody had warned me about, nobody said anything about, and unless you go through it, you will understand. But also, at some point, you're gonna come out of that phase, right? You're gonna come out of those feelings, or put them a little bit, behind you, and start operating like regular human. Yes, sleep is an issue. It's not even discussed anymore at our house, okay? We just know that this is what we have to do. But then I want you to think about the financial ramifications in the same way. Just like you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning because the baby's crying, you've gotta get the financial pieces in place. So number 1 is to make sure, and I had personally had a really bad experience with this, even though I stayed on the top, is to make sure you add your child to your health insurance, okay? Really important. So, and you have 30 days window to do that, okay? In the first 30 days from the day they're born, you can add them to your health insurance plan, whether it's your spouse's or it's a joint plan, or however you decide to do that, where it makes the most sense, okay? The birth and the delivery, all that is covered under your own coverage, but in order to provide everything else to the baby beyond the first day when they're born, they need to have their own plan. Now, it took a little bit of time and two insurance companies for me to finally make sure that Liam had coverage, and I did not. And I've called back and forth. It was really a nightmare, where in reality it should have been a really simple procedure. You call your insurance company, say I had a baby, we had a baby, add my child to my coverage. You know, they don't even need the social security number, just give them their date of birth and the name. But it did not work as smoothly as I thought it was gonna work, because what happens is if you don't do it in the first 30 days, you're missing out on this window that's called, it kind of fits into this idea of life qualifying event, where you can make changes to your health insurance plan, because otherwise you could have to wait until the open enrollment season, which I just mentioned earlier is in normally October, November, end of the year, December timeline. So if you had your baby in January, just like we did, it's a long time to wait without a health insurance or getting them on your health insurance. Okay, so really, really, really important. As silly as it sounds, but it kind of ties into my earlier point, is when are you planning to go back to work? What are you going to be doing, right? On the other side of that, what are you going to be doing for childcare? Okay, and I know that, you know, and people have been asking me that question. Is like, what are you going to do? What is your plan going to be? And it took me a while. It's still not final, but it took me a while to figure it out. If you're planning, and hopefully you've planned for it even before having a baby, right? And one of the things that I've done early enough is to make sure I looked around to see what kind of daycare centers were available. What kind of options are there? Or are you going to be able to stay home to take care of this child? Do you have family members? So what is the plan? But remember, this is the financial piece. How much is it going to cost, and how does that fit into your budget? Okay, so remember, you need to think about this ahead of time, because it's not that easy to get in really good daycares, and it's not that easy and fast to find a nanny once you're ready to go back to work. So two other things that are on my list of working items, but I am gonna get them done in the next couple of weeks, because I had this deadline in my mind. By the time Liam is 4 months, these things have been put in place. Number 3 is to make sure you've updated or created a new set of estate planning documents. Okay, now this is really important. Okay, how, who, and what do you want to happen, and who will take care of your precious little bundle of joy, right, when you're not here? That needs to be outlined in the legal document. Okay, so it was really eye-opening. Yuri and I had done our estate planning documents a while ago, but because we did not have a dependent, it really changed our perspective as to what did we want all to happen. Who are we going to name the guardian of this child? My family is on the East Coast. He does not have any siblings, so it really took us, you know, quite some time, right, of deep conversations about deciding how do we want this done. But I tell you what happened. Once we finished filling out the questionnaire, you know, reached out to the estate planning attorney, we were finished with the, you know, initial part, gave him all the information. Yuri was like, wow, it feels really, really good. We've accomplished something big. And I was like, yeah, you know, I've experienced this before with my clients, the ones that finally gotten their estate planning documents done. But having to do this process again, where, okay, now I know that if something were to happen to me, my child, right, and my loved ones too, it's not just about the child, it's everything else that you've been working so hard for, now has a plan. Okay, and it is not that difficult. It really is not. Financial planning, I tell my clients this all the time, is much more involved, much more cumbersome, much more you know, time intensive, versus sitting down and saying, here's how I want my assets divided, this is who will take care of my child, boom, done. Okay, I'm off the soapbox, but get your estate planning documents updated. And now I'm talking about a will, durable power of attorney for financial matters, healthcare directive, and then in the state of California, like item number 4 for us is a living trust. you could decide, and your attorney can advise you if you need a live-in trust. If you need referrals to attorneys, let me know. I have plenty of connections. And then my number 4 item on my overall list once you had a baby is to open a 529 college savings plan. I'm working on that. You need to have a social security number, right, for the baby. You could open it technically, right, in your own name, and then once the baby's born and you got the social security number, you can change that up. But if you're anticipating for your child to go to a higher education, to a higher educational institution, university, college, that is something you need to consider, because the cost of college is ridiculous and it only goes up from here on. In 18 years from now, it's going to be one of those things that you're going to be really happy that you did. And one other thing too, remind grandparents that all of those toys, all of those clothes, and all of the things that the baby needs are great, and I highly appreciate all the gifts we've gotten from everyone, but particularly grandparents. But even the $50, right, that they want to give, or $100, goes a long way if you invest it today, right, in this type of vehicle. And remember, every dollar you put in, if it's used 18 years later for college-related educational expenses, it comes out tax-free. You can't find a better place to save for college. So wherever you think your child is going to be planning to go, just plan for it to be more expensive than you actually anticipate right now. So those are the 4 things before you have a baby, and 4 things to do right after you have a baby. There's a numerous list of things that every new mom and dad has to get on their plate. But I really advise you to sit down, right? Once you come out of this kind of a phase where you can function on less sleep, right? And start to come out and have some kind of a clarity and schedule, get your financial life in order, because it's now not about you, okay? That's what I want you to remember. It is not about you anymore. If you chose to do this, right, if you chose to bring life, it is now your responsibility to take care of them. Not just love them to death and want to spend time with them, but your responsibility to take care of them financially. I hope these tips were helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, or perhaps there's something else that you've done in this very first short period of time that helped you tremendously. I'll tune in for our next money date on next week, and have a great weekend. Bye everybody.